In our previous program, we looked at Christ and the covenant of Sinai. I am Mukhwana Isaac. We're welcoming you to a journey through the Bible where we go through the word of the Lord. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Today we look at the mystery of God's choice of Israel. Have you ever asked yourself why God chose Israel to be his people? We can just ask ourselves, why should God choose any nation or group of people to be his particular people? Why is it that why should God choose such and such a man to be a priest, to be a doctor, to be name and mention those categories of people, and especially those working in his vineyard? The answer will only be found in God's own words. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. We read this in Prophet Isaiah chapter 55 verse 8. The Israelites could not have given an answer to this question at the moment of God's choice of them on Sinai. It would take time before they would understand more and more. The Israelites were beginning to realize that their God was the powerful one, the Holy One. He was the creator and master of the world. All history depended on him. It was then a cause of amazement for the wise people among the Israelites that God should have chosen their nation as his very own. Those who were wise. Israel was only a new and tiny nation, and the people were miserable, complaining a lot. In comparison with the real nations surrounding them, the Israelites could hardly pretend to call themselves a nation. But in fact, it was only when Israel was in its most miserable period in its history during the exile in Babylon, 7 centuries later, that it best understood why God had chosen it in preference to all others. The people, the prophets of Israel, insisted that it was only because God wanted and loved Israel that he had chosen it to be his people for the salvation of the world. The prophet spoke of his deep love. Talk about Osee, Prophet Hosea. He spoke of God's love for Israel when he said in God's name, "When Israel was a child, I loved it." Chapter 11 verse 1 to 4. The freedom of God's choice was made very clear to the Israelites by the writer of the book of Deuteronomy. It was not because you were more in number than any other people that the Lord set his love upon you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But it's because the Lord loves you and is keeping the oath which he swore to your fathers, that the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of bondage. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 7 to about 10. There was nothing about the Israelites that could have made them even less unworthy than other nations to be chosen by God. They were not a particularly gifted nation. They are called a stiff-necked and stubborn race with very little virtue. Deuteronomy chapter 9 verse 4 to about 6. The prophet Ezekiel declared Israel to be like a rejected newborn child, bathed in its own blood and despised by all. We read this in Ezekiel chapter 16 verse 4. And so God's free love and faithfulness to his promises is the only possible explanation for his choice and love of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 37, then chapter 7 verse 8, chapter 10 15, then 23 to verse 5. God loves to create out of nothing, and that is what we saw during the creation story. Out of nothing he created. Let there be. He can be compared to a potter who shapes a vessel just as he likes. You can make a jar, you can make a pot, you can make a jerrycan out of a vessel. Yes, with complete freedom, power and love, as we see in Jeremiah chapter 18 verse 2 to 6. And this is what he did with Israel. As St. Paul wrote, God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. We read this in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 23 to 31. My brother, my sister, do not despise yourself. Do not underlook yourself. Do not say, what can God also do in me, through me? He can. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. I have been Mukhwana Isaac with a journey through the Bible. Stay blessed.